So this video has actually been labelled different things, but whenever I got to the scripting stage, I just blanked. So listen to me talk about my favourite writing tropes. This is basically a list of things that I enjoy reading, watching, writing, and I'm actually kind of interested if people agree with me. To start with, I'm aware that a lot of these don't actually fall in line with the word trope. This is purely just for interaction purposes. I wrote an entire essay in my second year about the word trope and where it's come from, which I can totally turn into a video essay if people are interested. But before we get into it, let me talk about what I'm drawing in the background. This is a poster from my webcomic, Keys of Corruption, which is hopefully going to come out late spring, early summer of this year. In a world where only 1% of the population is born with special powers called keys, distressing things start to happen to Rose Kingley when her mentor dies. This sets into motion a dangerous chain of events that will change Rose's life forever. So, if this sounds like your kind of thing, consider following me on my socials. Links are in the description. In no particular order, let's get on to the tropes. Number 1, enemies to lovers done right. I have to specify done right because some enemies to lovers just aren't that good. If I made a list of tropes that I didn't like, enemies to lovers would also be on there. I really do love this trope, especially when it's enemies to reluctant allies to lovers. There's something so intriguing about two characters who despise each other, finding some common ground and forming an attachment from it. Also, if they keep jabbing at each other like when they were enemies, it just makes the relationship so much better because their dynamic hasn't changed. It's just that they're in love with each other now. It's also funny to have outside characters react to the relationship with like genuine confusion but overall acceptance. But I think that's more my brand of humor rather than something that actually makes the trope better. Number 2, sassy characters. Sassy characters. I fear I've been infected by the sassy man apocalypse. Like, make a character sassy and then they'll instantly be in my top 10 characters every time. I also like when a sassy character goes up against another sassy character and suddenly they're just sassing everyone around them. I think this is a massive personal favourite when I write. Like, 9 times out of 10 a character will be sassy. I can't tell if it's because I'm English and we're quite sarcastic, or because I'm naturally quick at comebacks in conversations, but sassy arguments for the sake of arguments are genuinely some of my favourite scenes to write. Like, let the sillies be silly. Number 3, energetic characters who are actually depressed. Energetic characters in the sense of being perceived as happy-go-lucky, loud, tiny bit insane, boyish, I guess. But when the character gets stripped back, they're quiet and deeply emotional and sometimes depressed. Immediately when I hear energetic characters who are depressed, I think of Gojo from Jujutsu Kaisen and Dazai from Bungo Stray Dogs. I like this character archetype because it's very similar to how I act IRL, so seeing these characters become quite popular and people still loving them despite their flaws kind of validates me a little bit. Man, I need to go to therapy. Number 4, found family. I will sink my teeth into a found family story every single time. Like, the first proper anime I ever watched was Fairy Tail, which has deeply affected the way I view found family, and I love it so much. I do prefer it when the found family doesn't date inside the found family, and it's just more of like a sibling-coded relationship. I'm never mad when it does happen, because I understand it's definitely a lot easier to fall in love with your friends. I also love it when people join the found family and still have a biological family around, not just because of the drama that it brings, but because it's so refreshing to see a character choose themselves. Number 5, major character death. Yeah, I don't think this one deserves an explanation like the others. I'm mentally ill. Number 6, letting characters feel their emotions. I don't see this a lot, or at least to the depths that I desire, but letting characters visibly grieve or feel the emotions of traumatic events. It's something that I don't quite like about season 2 of Arcane, where whenever a character died, they just were never talked about again. Like Isha, no one spoke her name after her death. The only reaction we really had was Jinx having her mental breakdown, but she's never mentioned by name. I think characters being allowed to feel their grief also lets those dead characters be preserved for longer, because grief isn't gone just like that, you know? It's a lengthy process. I like this trope as well because it kind of feeds into character regression a little bit, which I really enjoy when it's done on purpose. Number 7, time skips. I like this usually in the middle of a story, not only so that we get to see where the characters are when they're older and potentially adults, but it's also so that we can see growth in a short amount of time. Like maybe a character can't read, but suddenly 5 years go by and they can read 2 different languages. As well as this, a decent time skip can show you a completely different world environment if you're in a fantasy world, which is equally as interesting. In general, you get to re-explore what you already love about that world, just because a little bit of time has passed. Number 8, romance as a side plot. Now, I'm a big fan of romance, and this kind of leans into slow burn territory, but I prefer when a character has goals outside of their love interest. I think it's a more realistic approach to romance, and means that you don't have to center on it as much as a classic romance story has to. Like, if your story is about politics, then romance can be the most side plot ever, but it's still in the story in a slow burn. Shipping is inevitable in whatever medium you're in, but a lot of people can get behind a slow burn romance in the background of your bigger plot. Number 9, villain reforms, done right. Now, I can't lie, I do love a villain who's just evil for the sake of being evil, but I do love a good reformed villain too. Zuko and Loki are 2 of my favourite characters, both for similar reasons. Zuko being a perfect example of a reformed villain, because to begin with, they weren't afraid to show him as a villain, something that the live-action Zuko missed. But when he was on the path to becoming good, he kept stumbling and regressing back again. Loki was similar to this, until he ended up dying as a hero in Infinity War, which I honestly hope they would have left, because I think they reformed him a little bit too quickly in the Loki series, so I can't say that I love his arc too much. But reformed villains stumbling and being awkward around heroes once a part of the group will always make me laugh and be endeared to them. Number 10, corruption/villain arcs. In contrast to the last one, corruption arcs, when done on purpose, are so juicy. I'm specifically talking about like moral corruption. As much as the designs for actual corruptions are cool, I love when a character just slowly starts to turn evil. The slow descent into apathy and leaving all of their loved ones behind is something so compelling, especially when being watched in real time. Whether they get a redemption or not at the end depends on what the story is trying to tell, and I can lean either way depending on how far gone the character is. Number 11, superpowers. I love when shows and comics have their own unique power system. It just fills out the world so much and truly makes each one unique. Bungo Stray Dogs with abilities, My Hero Academia with quirks, magic in fairy tale, and a lot of other mediums. I just love how creatively it's all used. There'll obviously be some crossover because nothing is truly unique, but seeing a specific writer's take on a power scaling is always so fascinating to see, and it's exciting to try and learn more about it. These have been a few of my favourite tropes. Do people have similar ones? Does anyone agree with me? Maybe you have some different ones. Comment it below and let's have a discussion about it. If people are interested in hearing more of my opinions, I could do a video on what my least favourite tropes are and maybe stir the pot a little bit. If you'd like to see the finished version of this art, follow me on my socials. Until next time!